Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Good Witch Bad Bitch. It's your girl Luna, and I am so pumped for this episode today, you guys. Today I am bringing on Gabriela Herstik, literally my favorite witchy author in the entire world. If you guys have been listening to this podcast for a while or following my YouTube channel, you know how much I love Gabriela Herstik. She is so amazing. She's literally a queen, and she's coming out with her new book, Sacred Sex, on July 12th. So I wanted to have her on to chat about all things spicy, and it was honestly probably the most fun podcast I've ever done, ever. So I'm so excited for you guys to listen to it. I'm gonna have all of her links down below so that you can follow her, check her out, and order her new book, because you guys, it's gonna be so good. I'm literally so excited. I know I'm gonna finish the book in like 2 days max because I'm just so pumped for it. So also, the last part of this podcast is exclusive to Patreon. So if you would like access to the last about 15, 20, 25 minutes of this podcast where we go a little bit extra spicy, a little too spicy for Spotify, if you know what I'm saying, that will be exclusively on Patreon. All tier levels will get access to it. So if you are wanting to hop in on that combo, definitely come on over to Patreon. I will have the link for that in the description as well. But other than that, let's just jump into it. Before we get started, I wanted to give a huge thank you to the first ever sponsor we've ever had on this podcast. How exciting is that? I'm so excited because I am partnering with Goddess Provisions. As you guys know, I have been obsessed with Goddess Provisions since 2020. I got my first box way back then, and they have been such a huge part of my witchy journey. I have been doing unboxings of their boxes for like the past years. So if you guys have been here a hot minute, you know exactly how much I love Goddess Provisions. So I was so excited to partner with them and tell you guys a little bit about their current box right now, okay? I'm so pumped. The box for July 2022 is called the Luminous Light box. It has got so many goodies in it that I'm so excited about. We've got a little book from House of Intuition. We've got an oil for aura cleansing, a tea, and so much more. And you guys, it's just so cool. And I actually have a little coupon code for you guys. If you're a first-time subscriber, you can actually use the code LUNAFREE. I'll have this in the description. And you will get a free incense and holder and the most recent Moon Wisdom Club guidebook. If you guys don't know what that is, that's their little moon lunar club they do monthly, and each lunar cycle they send you an ebook all about what's happening in the astrosphere. I have been a part of their Moon Wisdom Club, and I've always thought it was really nice and just a super informative little ebook to look forward to. So make sure to use the code LUNAFREE for your first subscription, and you'll get so many goodies. Thank you so much again to Goddess Provisions for partnering with me on this podcast episode. Let me know when you guys get your box. I'm so excited to see it. Tag me in all the pictures because this one's a good one. Okay, back to the podcast. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode. I am literally so excited right now because we have Gabriela Herstik with us. Everyone say hello, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on, Gabby.
Yay, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Yes, and I'm gonna let Gabby get into what she does, but just to get, if you guys have been listening or watching my videos, you have heard me talk about Gabriela Herstik. Her book, Inner Witch, was the very first book I ever read on witchcraft. And so looking back and thinking, what would little old me think if I would have known that I'd be sitting here right now with her? It'd be crazy. And I have her other books right here. Embody Your Magick was a book club book that me and my Patreon went through a couple of months ago. And then Bewitching the Elements. And she's coming out with a new book literally
the day this podcast comes out, no, the week this podcast comes out, July 12th on Tuesday, this podcast will come out right after on that Friday. A new book called Sacred Sex. We're going to talk all about it because we love sex on this podcast. We love talking about it openly. So I'm going to let Gabriela introduce herself and talk to you guys about who she is. So if you just want to like, let us know what you're up to, who you are, what's your vibe.
Sure. So my name is Gabriela Herstik. I am California born, but raised in the South in Georgia, and then came back to LA, and I've been here for about 6 years. And I have been a practicing witch since I was 12 or 13 years old. My practice with witchcraft is very much rooted in sexuality and sex magic, as well as the devotion to the divine feminine. And nowadays, my work really lives at that intersection of the esoteric and the erotic. I say it like kind of lives at the intersection of the divine feminine, witchcraft, and sexuality. And I'm the author of 3 books, like you mentioned: Inner Witch, Embody Your Magick, which is the guided journal, and Bewitching the Elements. All with the intention, all my work really holds the intention of making the occult, the metaphysical, and witchcraft, a spiritual, nature-based tradition, really accessible for really anybody. But my work definitely skews towards like, I don't want to say it's towards like women, because I think it's really important to me that men have like space as witches, and especially like now that they're able to explore their sexuality. But I definitely feel like my work is very much for the girlies, for the goddess worshipers. And I try to make my work really like, accessible is really important to me, really easy to like understand. I don't really like use jargon. I am known to be like very airheaded and bimbo-y. So I'm like, I want things that people can understand. So yeah, my new book, Sacred Sex, I have it here, The Magick and Path of the Divine Erotic, comes out on July 12th. And it's all about creating a spiritual practice that centers your sexuality, that allows you to get in touch with what I call the divine erotic, the living energy that makes up the universe, that is sexual and like aware, and that we tap into when we're practicing sex magic. Besides that, I run a sex magic discussion circle on my Patreon, where I also offer ritual guides for the lunations as well as the Wheel of the Year. I also co-host and am the priestess of Kink Coven, which is a monthly full moon ritual where we have a full play party and raise energy to send to sex workers. We like cast a spell of protection and prosperity at the beginning of the ritual based on whatever the full moon is doing, and then we have a virtual play party and we raise energy for the working, and that's been going on honestly for like 2 years, which is bananas. And yeah, I'm a writer. My background is in journalism, so I've written essays for different, I guess collections and books and stuff like that. But nowadays, I'm like working on back to a book on goddesses, and have another secret project under my belt that we're wrapping up that I'll announce eventually. But yeah, I'm just like trying to slut it up and have fun and be magical at the same time. So it's like my elevator pitch of work. I'm sure I forgot some.
Yeah, well, I can definitely vouch for you. Like I said, Inner Witch was the first book I read, and I really appreciate when books are readable and it's not just like all these random, crazy, hard to read words just to sound smart, because that's exactly how I am too. I just speak very, like casually and like real. And so I love seeing that. And yeah, I love that. So I ask every guest who's on my podcast, what's your big 3?
Oh, I love this question. This is what I ask literally every person ever, and like every man I'm interested. I'm like, what's your sign? What's your sign? It's like my favorite way to slide into somebody's like Tinder DMs. I am an Aquarius sun, a Scorpio moon, and a Libra rising. And I also have my Venus and Mars in Aquarius. So I'm very Aquarian. Also have a lot of Scorpio, but yeah, Aquarius, Scorpio, Libra. How about you?
I feel like that all makes sense for you. I feel like that the Aquarius, the Scorpio, the Libra, all that. I am a Taurus rising, so we are girls up in here. And I'm an Aries sun and a Pisces moon. So
oh my god.
chaotic up in
Wow,
here.
what a like beautiful mix.
It's
Oh my
crazy.
God, I
Yeah.
see it. I feel like Venus ruled people are so like, you're so beautiful. Like we're just
So
like,
are you. I just goddess energy. Yeah, I feel like Libra risings are always like the most beautiful people in the world. I think Libra is such a pretty sign.
Yeah. I don't have like any earth in my chart. So I definitely like, I don't have like any earth. I have Uranus and Neptune and Capricorn, which are like generational planets, or like outer planets. And then I have no fire sign placements. So I have such fire sign FOMO, and like earth, I really have to try to like ground myself like
Yeah.
every day, or else I will be just like up in the clouds in my feels. So
I really feel that with my Pisces moon. Like if I don't really ground, I will be daydreaming. Like it's crazy. Yeah.
I know a lot of Pisces moon people, my roommate, like one of my best friends, and I feel like the water moon placement, it's like such a gift because we're so like in tune with our emotions, but it's just like so much. But
Yeah,
just get us
well, okay, one question I want to ask before we get started. Because you know so much about sex magic. Like I feel like you were this like all-knowing being of the Divine Erotic. And I'm curious, just for people who are new to sex magic, and when you're starting, it sounds very much like it is just straight to the point sex. But I know that there's so many different things that go into it. What would you say in your experience is the most surprising benefit that you've gotten from using sex magic?
Okay, first off, I'm definitely not an all-knowing being at all. I'm still figuring it out 1,000%. But I really, really appreciate that compliment. But like, I'm not a guru, and I don't want people to like, yeah, I'm a youngin. Also, that's a really great question. I think that what surprised me the most about sex magic, let me think. I feel like it's that it like, when you practice it as like a tool of devotion to yourself or to like something else, like for me it's like myself and then like the goddesses of love and lust that I'm devoted to, I feel like it infuses like the rest of your life. Like you'll look different. I don't know if it's just like the orgasms that like make your skin look good or something, but also like people like notice, like there's like, you definitely become like way more magnetic, but also like there's like that physical aspect, but I feel like you're able to connect to like the divine erotic or to your sexuality outside of actually practicing the sex magic. Cause like when if we're expanding our definition of sex to be beyond just like penis and vagina sex, or like just beyond penetration in general, we're able to expand our definition of what sex magic is. So like if sex magic is anything that makes our sexuality, like if we infuse it with consciousness and make our sexuality something that we're like aware of and something we have spiritual intent behind, that like that can mean a lot of different things. So it can mean like you can tap into that when you're like walking around and feeling good, or like when you're wearing something that makes your tits look good and you feel really good, or like when you're dancing or like giving yourself a massage. Like it really, like, I think that was surprising to me that like, yeah, we have this like very basic definition of sex magic when we're like starting, that's like using your orgasms and like sending out energy, but it can also like, it morphs and then it like really like infuses your life with these like very interesting energy. And that can also come up in like not the most fun ways. Like you, like I have gotten catcalled more, like, and I do wear slutty outfits, but even when I'm not, like I've been getting so much, like I get catcalled so much more when I'm like really, really in my sex magic practice, which is like funny. I just kind of like offer that energy up to goddess, but I definitely feel like it shifts the way you move through the world, and it's really interesting. But I think there's a lot of surprises. Yeah, but I think that's the thing that came to me right now, so I'll stick with it.
What you're saying about like just the little things like putting on an outfit, having your tits out, stuff like that. Something that I've talked about a bit on my channel and here on the podcast is when I was a dancer and how I had never been in the sex work industry. And then I became a dancer and I saw this like crazy new world where like my friends are just standing on stage with their titties out and like men are in this like crazy zone where they're just like, here's hundreds of dollars. And it's like this spell. And that's when I really, really dived into sex magic, because there's so much like mysticism behind especially the goddess energy in the female form, because it's been so oppressed and it's been so like demonized even. It's kind of interesting how people now, although the sex work industry is like really still kind of fucked up in some ways, and like we need to make sure that like people are getting their rights and stuff, it's crazy to see how a world that is profited off of our exploitation, we can now turn the tables and like take that and kind of profit off of that. So what, I know you're like so sex work positive, which I love. I want to hear about like your experience, if you're open to sharing, and maybe if there's anything in your new book too about if you can spill any little details.
Yeah, so I do OnlyFans stuff. I do like other dungeon related stuff that I'm not like out about yet, so I won't talk too much about that, but I'm saying that's like one of the things that, yeah, like I've had like family friends that have seen me, like I've been doing OnlyFans for like a year, and I started October 2020 or October 2021, October 2020. So it's been like, I can't do math, a year and a half. I've been doing it for a year and a half, and then like dungeon stuff before that. But it's so funny because like people will like my like parents' friends and like family friends, like recently whenever they see me, like my mom too, she's like, you look so different, like you look so good, you're just so much more confident. And she's like, what is it? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, thanks, it's sex work. It's like making money off of like my sexuality, which I had been like shamed and shunned for and like thought was gonna like actually ruin my career. So I think it's like one of the authors that I really admire, who inspires me a lot, that writes about Babylon, is this woman named Amodali. I've talked about her on my Patreon. And she, you know, Babylon is this goddess that represents like sex and sexuality and unfulfilled feminine energy. And one of the things that she says that I think is really interesting is like people are scared of Babylon. They see her as like this like really destructive force. And Amodali is like, Babylon represents female sexuality, which has been shunned and hidden for thousands of years. Like it's, people are scared of what's going to happen when that becomes like, when that, the rage of that is like hits, like they're scared of like that destructive force that's going to come with that to like even out the playing field and get us to back to a state of like equilibrium. So I mean, yeah, sex work is like, obviously I'm a able-bodied white woman. Like my experience is very, very, very privileged, which is like part of the reason I'm not like really out about a lot of it, because I just like feel like I don't need to be taking up the space with it. It'll happen one day. But it's, yeah, I feel the same thing where it's like, well, I've been sold, like I've been told that if I'm sexual, I'm being too much, or that I'm gonna like ruin my career. And then I've also been sold the idea that if I'm like not sexual and like a prude or whatever, that like I'm still sold sex all the time through like commercials and advertisements, and like still called a whore and a slut by random people on the street. So like I like being sexual. Why can't I like express that in a way that like also brings me money? Like I think for me too, like my experience with sex work is like the freedom and like the financial security from that are so, it's so liberating. Like it's liberating to have to like make as much in an hour of work than I would writing an article that would take me days, or I would make as much in like 2 days, like 2 8-hour days at like my old job. Like I've said this before, I was a writer at Hello Giggles, and I was writing like 5 pieces a day, like fluff pieces, bullshit, like some really great essays. It was a fun time sometimes, but like a lot of bullshit, a lot of like, this is what this person wore on the runway, or this is new Krispy Kreme flavor. And it was like sitting at an office for 8 hours. Like I was there for a year, and I knew the first month that if I stayed, it would eat my soul up. Even like my worst experience with sex work has been better than that. And like it's disputed if the tradition of temple priestesses in the Near East actually existed. I don't really think it matters the total historical accuracy. The belief, the myth, the idea was that there were these priestesses in the temples of the goddess of love and sex, like Inanna or Venus or Aphrodite, who would embody the goddess and engage in sexual ritual with the people who came to honor the goddess and embody the divine masculine. And like this tradition to me is carried forth by sex workers, whether they're dancers or like pro doms or escorts. Like there is this tradition of like embodying this divine sexuality and allowing somebody to like live in this fantasy without shame that is so powerful and so transformative. A lot of like you'll read a lot about like the sacred prostitutes, which like I really, first off, I don't like using the word prostitute. Second off, like that distinction between sacred and profane to me, like being like, oh, these were the sacred prostitutes who worked in the temple, and those were the profane prostitutes that were like street sex workers. Like it feels really gross. So I just use the term erotic votary to describe that like legacy of temple priestesses. And I talk about it in my book. I talk about like working with a goddess like Inanna as like a patroness when you're doing sex work. I talk about the erotic votary. There's a whole chapter in here called, so like the first 3 chapters of Sacred Sex are like sex ed 101, like what is sex magic, like getting ready for like practicing sex magic. And then the second section is like 7 different paths that your practice with sex magic can take. And one of those paths is what I call the path of the mystic, which is like the path of the goddess and working with your sexuality as an offering to her. And I talk about the erotic votary and like the legacy of the temple priestesses in there. And that's definitely something like I've experienced and like observed in my own, like with sex work. It's like having a space where people can explore their desires without shame is so powerful and so transformative. And like, I personally like enjoy the kind of sex work I do. I also love having an OnlyFans and being able to post like really slutty content without getting more shadow banned or without people on Instagram being like, what the fuck are you doing? So yeah, and I feel like sex workers are like the most educated and like the most like kind and like community oriented and also like the most witchy spiritual goddess people out there. Like it's such, and obviously there's like an array of communities, but like all the sex workers I know are just like the most incredible people, and I love them.
Yeah, I definitely had that experience too when I was dancing. Cause I mean, like I said, I didn't know. I mean, my sister-in-law was a dancer too, but I hadn't had any, like, I had never stepped foot into a strip club or anything. And so I had all these ideas of like, oh, the girls are going to be so beautiful and so mean to me, and I'm going to feel so blah, blah. And they were so beautiful, but they were so nice. And it's like, I've never, besides like witchy communities, like it really is like such a tight knit community that I've really never seen in many other places, because I mean, I don't know, it's just, there's so much love there. And there is that common crossover of like the occult and sex work. I remember like, I don't know, I was in a new club one time, and I was just like going back to change, and some girl just looked at me. She looked at me up and down. She said, "You're a witch, aren't you?" I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing, but yeah, that's it. And I just think it's just such a beautiful, sacred place. I love everything that you just said. I've read about temple priestesses, and it's a topic I find really interesting. I didn't know it was disputed at all, but I kind of like to believe it, you know. It feels
yeah, it's like, to me, it's like that legacy and like that egregore, that current is still like so alive, and like still like, you know, like the idea of like the holy whore, the whore goddess is like, at least to me, has been so like inspiring. And I just like, I'm obviously like, I always want to base what I'm writing about and like be accurate. I want it to base in historical facts, but at the same time, I'm like, we also think people lived in caves, and people didn't live in caves. It's just the shit in the caves is what survived. So we're just dumb. And I'm like, I don't really give a fuck if like, we're never going to know about like Inanna's priestesses, because she literally like, that was like 4,000 years ago. So you know what, like at least I'm just like, I'm not a stickler for that shit. I'm not a Virgo. I'm not going to be like, well, it didn't exist, so I'm not going to think about it. Cause also like that existed in like India and like in Asia, and like up, like it was like technically made illegal in like the 40s or 50s, I think, like to have like these like temple priestesses. But like if it existed there, I'm like, I don't necessarily think it was like the cult that like it's made out to be. But at the same time, I'm like, if I can tap into it, I don't really care at the end of the day. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, even if it's just like the energy, like the mythological energy, it's still something you can tap into and connect to. And I feel like if it brings you joy and like independence, like hell yeah, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to hear you talk about the divine erotic a lot, and it's kind of like a word you use a lot, and I'm really curious just like what that means to you. Like what is that?
So I personally, when I like think of like the universe or the all or like source or whatever, like I definitely feel like it is an electric, like very sexual energy. Like to me, the divine erotic is like the like erotic energy that runs through the universe. That is like what we connect to when we're doing sex magic. It is, to me, it's pretty similar to like the goddess and like her energy, but it's even more of like less archetypal and more just like raw power. So for me, the divine erotic is like the living consciousness of the universe that feels very sexual. It's like the energy of creation, which is sexual energy that permeates all things. Like I feel like the universe is like erotic and feminine. That's just like how I perceive it and how I connect to her. But I really like this idea of like the divine erotic because I feel like it's something that's always there. It's very numinous, but it's also something that like we're able to kind of like experience and that like we can tap into and that we can feel. And not everybody's going to experience it as sexual, but like I realized a long time ago that like my work was not made for everybody. Like if you vibe with what I write about, you'll know what I'm talking about, and if you don't, then that's fine, you know.
Yeah,
But
I kind of sorry.
no, it's okay. I think I don't even remember what I was going to say.
Yeah, I feel like your description of it kind of reminds me of what I've read about like Kundalini energy, which I know you talk about it. And that's something I want to know so much more about, like tantric practices and Kundalini, because it's such an ancient practice from my understanding. And you go into a ton of mystical different sex traditions. Do you have like a favorite one to talk about?
Oh, it's such a good question. So I definitely like talking about like tantra and stuff, mostly because like I feel like we have like we like in the West, our idea of tantra is like very like neo tantra, where it's like very based in sexual energy. And like I feel like actual like tantra in like India or even like Buddhist tantra, like Vajrayana Buddhism, like it's very like guarded. You have to have like a guru initiate you, and like the sexual aspect of it sometimes it's just imagined, it's not actually played out, and like it's like very like top level, only one part of it. So like I think it's pretty funny that we brought it to the West and then like made the sex part like the whole part. Like it's like very American to me, which I'm not upset about, but I do like talking about it because I really love like the idea, like what you said, of like Kundalini, of like it's exactly that. It's like this like living energy of sexuality. Kundalini is said to like, you know, it's represented by a serpent that's coiled at the base of the spine, which represents Shakti, or like the consciousness of the universe, which honestly, like I feel like that is the divine erotic. Like Shakti is just like the divine mother, but like this, like she really is just more like a sexual energy that permeates all of existence. And she's represented by this like coiled serpent at the base of the spine, the root chakra. And then Shiva, which is like the force and like the living kind of consciousness, like the more corporeal like power, creativity, like is at the crown of the head. And it's said that like you reach enlightenment when you're able to rouse like the snake, like Kundalini energy through your body and to the crown of your head. Like that's like part of a Kundalini awakening, which happens, it can happen intentionally, it can happen like if you're on drugs, it can happen, or psychedelics, it can happen if there's like some kind of like near-death experience or bad, like something really intense. But a Kundalini awakening is pretty much like a lightning bolt of like divine erotic energy that kind of just like gets you to like another level of like existence, I guess, like energetically, but can be very like scary and you feel like you're dying. But my favorite tradition, honestly, my favorite tradition to talk about is probably like the goddess tradition and like temple priestesses and stuff. That's like really been like a big inspiration to me, and like this idea of like the holy horror and all of the god, like anything related to like the goddesses of like love and sex and the ways that like sexuality and sex work play a part of that, whether it's like modern or like ancient, really, really inspires me. And I also really love like using the like Kabbalah and Hermetic Kabbalah and like the Tree of Life from the Western mysteries and like incorporating like those correspondences in my sex magic. And I just like love talking about that stuff. So probably one of those.
Nice. Yeah. Those also, the lightning bolt thing sounds crazy.
Like the Kundalini awakening, it's like very intense. My dom thought I was going through it, and I was like, I feel like I'm dying kind of in my experience on this earth. Like I've definitely felt like that feeling of like when reality is like melting and another is like coming into its place. But I might just because I was on a lot of edibles like consistently. I think it was like weed, but yeah, Kundalini, I really do like appreciate that tradition. I'm just like I kind of get weary about talking about it because it's like we have such a different idea of it in the West, but it's also like its own thing. So, you know.
For sure. I think one thing that I want to chat about and like hear your thoughts on, specifically around the divine erotic and sex magic. For me, something that I connect to sex magic is this feeling of sovereignty and like freedom, self-expression, and independence. And I feel like when we're talking about this right now, we kind of need to like talk about the shit happening in the world with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And I mean, I'm from Missouri, originally Kansas City, and I think Missouri's putting in something to really take away like trans rights. I'm not sure what the exact thing is, but like trans people all over the world, especially in this country, are really kind of getting fucked right now in the law system. And the Roe v. Wade thing was like, I think, so traumatizing for so many of us. What are like, let's talk about like, I don't know, how can we make ourselves feel better and feel a bit more in control of our power with sex magic, with the divine erotic? And I know you posted like, it was like an invocation to, was it Lilith or was it?
It was like the dark goddess.
Dark goddess.
I like named Lilith. I originally wrote that invocation as like part of like a working with my magical partner. Like when like it was like leaked that Roe v. Wade was going to be overturned, we called upon her. But it can really be like any kind of like face to the divine feminine that inspires you or you connect with.
Yeah. So what are some magical things we can kind of do in times when the US is fucked up?
I'm so glad you're asking this question. It's something I've been thinking a lot about. And like, I grew up in Georgia and went to school in South Carolina and have like friends back there. So I understand, like, I mean, I live in California right now, but like, I have a lot of, I feel a lot for like my people. And I get what you're talking about with Missouri. It's so disgusting. I think the first thing is to be gentle with ourselves. Like our sexuality is cyclical. It ebbs and flows. There's going to be times where we're really horny and there's going to be times where we're really disconnected and like not being upset about yourself or like not wanting to connect to your sexuality or not feeling right or not feeling empowered to like give yourself permission to be wherever you are right now. And like know that like you're handling it in the best way that you can. And like if you're feeling really disconnected from your sexuality in a way that makes you feel like upset or that doesn't feel necessarily normal for you, knowing that like this is not going to be how it is forever, like your libido or your connection to like the divine erotic, to sex magic, to your sexuality will come back. But if you do still feel like I think giving ourselves permission to wait until we feel ready, but then like when we feel ready, committing to like being there for ourselves sexually right now, I think is really important. Because like to me, like allowing what's happening to disconnect us from our own erotic essence is them really winning. Because when we're out of that, then we're not going to have the power, the strength, the force, the inspiration to like take whatever actions we can, even if it's just connecting to ourselves or donating money or like going to a rally or volunteering. Like we have to have that connection within ourselves first. But I think that there's a lot of different ways that you can connect to your sexuality. So I'm gonna go by elements, I think, because I think that would help. So like if you really like like doing something where like a practice where you're in your body and you're present in your body would be really powerful. Like I really love dry brushing and using like massage, like body oil and like putting body oil on. Like anything where you're like moving or touching your body or like letting like somebody else, like a lover you trust, touch yours, like that can be a first, right? Like we don't have to have sex to connect to our sexuality. So like if you're not feeling ready for that, you don't have to. Dance is a really good one, like moving and shaking and like making noises and screaming and just like jumping around is super cathartic. Like I cannot express how healing it is to just like jump around and fucking scream and just like make noises. I highly recommend it, especially if you feel like you've been holding everything inside. Taking a bath with things like rose petals or jasmine or Epsom salt, or just like a hot shower where you're visualizing like all of the worry and anxiety just like leaving you and like washing over you, would be really beautiful. If you have like a vibrator that's waterproof and you want to like, or if you have a penis and like whatever, masturbating in the bath, highly recommend. And just like allowing the water to hold you and feeling it as like your own sensuality there, like supporting you through this, I think would be a really beautiful offering. Like saying affirmations to yourself that reminds you of your sexual sovereignty for air, like I am a sex goddess and I claim like my autonomy no matter what, or I honor the ebbs and flows of my sexuality in all planes and all ways, or I hold my heart with tenderness and I adore my body in all of its, you know, flux. Whatever it is, like affirming that to yourself out loud, I find can be really, really powerful. As well as doing breath work, like just taking deep breaths or doing like practicing a certain like pattern of breath work, like square breath, where each like you inhale, hold, exhale, and hold, all for the same amount of time. Really, really, really grounding, really good for your nervous system. And even journaling, like it's important to like, especially as this affects, obviously affects people who are trans and people who are men who have uteruses, but majority this law affects women. And women especially, we have been told that we can't be angry, we can't be like upset, that we have to be like calm, and allowing ourselves to be angry or to be sad or to be scared is like what we need to do to like transmute that into something that's helpful. And I find journaling as an air sign really helpful for just being a fucking dramatic bitch and getting everything out of my head and just not having any reservations about what I say and writing it all down. So like, or even just like writing a like typing up a phone note like in the notes app, or like a mic, like recording yourself talking to the camera. Anything you're doing to like get out what you're upset about is going to be helpful. Like talking to therapists too if you have access. For fire, orgasms, like literally like using your sexuality to feed yourself, to nourish yourself, to make yourself feel good. Like it's also like a fuck you to the patriarchy if you're able to connect with your sexuality in a way that's not going to get you pregnant, and like solo sex will not. Like, thank God, that would be horrible. You could get yourself, that'd be so, wow, that's a whole like thought experience. I'll have to think about that when I'm stoned. But like having this, like I talk about in the book how to like create a sacred masturbation practice, and like you don't even have to make it anything fancy, but showing up for yourself sexually and remembering like what you like in your body and what pleasure feels like in your body, and like really being there for yourself like as a foundation of whatever other sex you explore, I think is like, it's more important now than ever to have that relationship with yourself because the stakes are fucking high. Like so and then for spirit, I would say like making an altar of some kind that reminds you of like your sensuality, like putting erotica that you like on there, or like you're like, I love taking like sexy Polaroids, like I have some on my altar of myself, or like, you know, even making an altar to like a goddess of love and sex, like a Nana or Venus or Isis or Hathor, whatever divinity you work with. But I say like having like a space that you can come back to that's aesthetically beautiful, that reminds you of like your sexual power and sovereignty, is going to be a respite. It's going to be really helpful, and it's going to be something that you can return to when you're feeling overwhelmed, that hopefully will help you like just find the peace and presence within yourself at that moment. And then also like bless your condoms. Like I have a condom blessing in the book. You can do that, like bless birth control, you know, like all that stuff. And yeah, I think those are some of my suggestions. That's all I can think of for right now.
I loved that. I loved everything you said. I think that, okay, so when I was growing up, I'm Gen Z, so I'm still pretty young, and I grew up like when iPhones were being really big, and it was like, no one take nudes. If you take nudes, like
I know everybody's gonna see them. I was so freaked that my nudes were gonna get like sent to like my entire middle school or high school. Like,
yeah.
oh
So there's so much like shame around that, but like now as an adult, like you said, Polaroids, taking nudes is so much fun. Like I literally will get dressed up, do my makeup, and just like take some nudes. It's
right?
fun. It's
also, I highly recommend that practice, like dressing up for yourself, knowing if like you're not comfortable, like if you haven't found your like flow in front of the camera, it's going to be really awkward at first, but it gets easier, and practice makes perfect. And like I really like my like hack is taking a video and posting in the video and then just screenshotting. But like taking nudes for yourself or for OnlyFans lovers, friends, like having girlfriends that you can send your nudes to, and you're like, I just like need to be hyped up. Can I send you this photo of my titties? So important.
Best to have.
So powerful. But yeah, I like there's so much power in reclaiming that image for yourself in a way that feels like sexy and hot. So I definitely like, I love taking nudes. It's so fun.
Yeah. So, okay, one last thing that I want to talk about really quick is like just something that's so big in my sex magic practice is the empowerment that comes with it. And just it's so necessary right now. And kind of we were talking about sex work earlier, and I think we're both LA witches. And right now here in North Hollywood, there's been a stripper strike happening for I think like 3 months, more than that. And
it's been a hot minute.
Yeah. I'll put in the show notes all the information on it if you guys are wanting to help out or donate or anything. But basically, yeah, it was a big stripper walkout because of how horrible the management was, which is something that's a huge problem. And we just need like a lot of reformation around that here in America. But I think that that's a very like practical empowerment thing, like a walkout, like a stripper strike. That's an amazing empowerment thing. And sex magic is so empowering. I guess my question to you is like, do you ever like imagine a world where everyone's like so sexually empowered and it's like a sexual revolution? Like how amazing would that be? Like, wouldn't our world change? Like our society would be so much better, I think.
Right? If people were like, if people here's my caveat. Not everybody's going to want to practice sex magic, just like not everybody's going to want to be a witch. But if everybody had the opportunity to like meet themselves and know their desires without shame, and like obviously consensual healthy desires between adults, right? Like obviously stating that, but like if we all had the opportunity and all were like empowered to like do that, and we were all having orgasms regularly, and we were all like open about it and not weird about it, and like practicing sex magic, like it would literally be a better world. Like I really think that like, yeah, I you know, I do think that there's a lot of power in keeping things sub rosa and like keeping things private, and like not everybody needs to know everything off the bat. Like there's a reason that like you learn things, you know, in a certain way, I guess. But I also am like sex magic for the people. Like I want like everybody to know about this shit, because it is so self-empowering when you know your desires, you know that you can embrace them, and like you do it as something to like feel good within yourself that you can then share if you want to share. So I would love to live in a world where I could just like walk around with my titties out and nobody would say a thing, and it'd be great, and like everybody just like supported one another and was like open about what they wanted, and like, yeah, treated sex workers better and weren't killing trans sex workers of colors, instead supporting everybody. But Yeah, that's like what I'm striving towards. I really like, I'm ready for that sexual revolution.
Yeah, I feel like we're both a part of the modern revolution, just getting people like, you know, thinking about empowerment and things like that. But that is all for this interview. We're actually going to chat some more on Patreon about some more spicier things. So if you guys are listening right now and you want to hear the spicy things we chat about over for the rest of this podcast, go to my Patreon and any tier will get access to it. Gabriela, if you would like to just tell the people what's up with you, where they can find you, what you've got going on.
Yes. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Gabby Herstik. That's GABYHERSTIK, and my website, GabrielaHerstik.com, Gabriela with 1 L. My book comes out July 12th. If you're in the LA area, I'm having a release party on July 16th at El Cid at 7 p.m. That's in Silver Lake, and I host my sex magic discussion circle every month, Kink Coven every month, and release like essays and exclusive content on my Patreon, and that's also Gabby Herstik. So if you find one link, you can find them all. I'm on, also my link tree is like Gabby Herstik, so it has links to everything, but Instagram, Twitter, website, all good places to find me.
Yeah, I'll make sure to put all your links in the show notes as well, so people can easily get to you. Thank you so much for coming on. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
What did you guys think of that episode? Oh my God, let me know, DM me, hit us up on Twitter. I am so excited to keep this conversation going because this is such a necessary topic and just something that's like, you guys know my whole thing is demystifying the taboo. Like I want to talk about, the things that we're not supposed to talk about or whatever. Like let's talk about all the juicy things. Let me know what you guys think. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Definitely show some love to Gabriela Herstik, and definitely let me know if you get her new book. I just think it's going to be so amazing. I'm so excited. Again, if you guys want to support this podcast, definitely head over to Patreon. I 100% just am so appreciative of all my Patreon faves because they help me to keep this podcast going. As you guys know, I, besides today's sponsored post, don't make any money from my podcast. So, really, Patreon is the supporters of this podcast. So if you want to support me there, join the baddest group of witches on the internet. And it's really such a fun time over there. We're doing a lot of fun exclusive content recently, and I'm so excited for this month because it's going to be a little glamour magic-y. So definitely hop on over there, and I will see you guys there. Talk to you later. Bye.